I believe we are live now. We can begin.
Yeah.
Good evening and greetings, everyone. I'm Sonal,
And I am Anushka.
and we are your hosts for this evening's Valedictory session, part of the virtual National Conference on School Sustainability and Education, a roadmap to Sustainable Development Goals 2030. This conference has been curated very diligently by the Policy Research and Advocacy Team at sarkarischool.in in collaboration with the Economics Club Fergusson College. It is my privilege to be welcoming you all to what we are hoping will be a very interesting discussion. I would now like to call upon my team member Prapti to present a formal welcome address to our guests and our viewers. Over to you, Prapti.
Let's start the session by a motivational quote by Kofi Annan. Our biggest challenge in this new century is to take an idea that seems abstract, sustainable development, and turn it into a reality for all the world's people. Namaste and good afternoon. I feel great pride to say that this conference has been organized by sarkarischool.in in collaboration with Economics Club of Fergusson College. I bid a very warm welcome to our renowned guest speaker, Palak Sharma, who took out her valuable time and joined us today to be a part of this wonderful conference. We are truly honored to have you. Looking forward to learn and get inspired by your words. I hope everyone who is with us today, who is watching us live, gets to learn and comes out being inspired and more knowledgeable on this topic. Without any delays, I would request the host to kindly take over.
Thank you, Prapti, for such a warm and cheery welcome. Before we proceed further, I call upon Nishat to give us a description of our organization, sarkarischool.in, and its efforts towards ensuring educational equity. Over to you, Nishat.
Sarkari School under WeCitizen Foundation is an initiative for creating educational equity, has been working towards the legacy of government schools. Our mission is to inspire a wider movement of hidden heroes that will lead to some transformation for all government schools in India. It inspired the community by sharing stories of unsung heroes who are continuously dedicating their efforts in bringing revolution in government schools. We are continually trying to spread awareness regarding social issues, talking about taboos related to women, conducting workshops on menstrual health and hygiene through Gift a Pat and Gift a Smile campaign. Earlier, sarkarischool.in had conducted various seminars, workshops, including virtual national conference on learning during lockdown with Miranda House in 2021, a conference on 10 years of right to education with National Law University Odisha, and national conference on national education policy with Dr. Sama Prasad Mukherjee College, University of Delhi. Sarkarischool.in conducts live interviews with teachers who have transformed the life of millions of people, especially who are associated with government school in the region deprived of basic facilities. Our mission is to bring story of these change makers in front of others to inspire, create and recognize their effort. With the continuous and tireless efforts, we are providing platform for these change makers who need recognition not only to appreciate the efforts but to motivate others in terms of things possible with no support and with just self-determination.
Thank you so much, Nishat. I would now like to call upon Neha. I would now like to call upon Isha to give us a brief about our collaborators from ECF Fergusson College.
Good evening to all the dignitaries and scholars present here today. Myself, Isha Wagmare, one of the coordinators of the Economics Club of Fergusson College. Being the students of economics and the youth of the nation, we firmly believe that sustainable development and economic values should go hand in hand for the global development. We feel bad while seeing our policymakers talking about economic problems and how to address them when they clearly ignore the concept of sustainability. And being the face of ECF, we feel that it is our responsibility to spread this message to the best of our capabilities. Therefore, when we found this conference a golden opportunity for verbalizing our viewpoints on this crucial topic. Today, I, on the behalf of our head of the department, our teacher coordinator, the student coordinators, and the volunteers of ECF, thank the organizers of this conference for providing us with this opportunity. Today, we promise that through the various activities that ECF will conduct throughout the year, we will emphasize on the core values that we learned today. With this said, I thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, Isha, and kudos to the work your society is doing in improving economic literacy. I would now like to call upon Neha to tell us about the conference. Neha, kindly unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. A very warm welcome to all present here. Today, we are here to discuss the theme Sustainability and Education, a roadmap to Sustainable Development Goals 2030. As we all know that India is a developing nation, and for every developing nation, the UN Sustainable Development Goals represent the comprehensive and holistic development paradigm which encompasses the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of development. These goals focus on tackling major challenges like poverty, gender inequality, quality of natural resources, global warming, and climate change, and inequity in access to resources with an aim to provide a blueprint of transformation which aids the creation of an inclusive, sustainable, and healthy ecosystem. India, home to one-sixth of the global economy, is taking great strides in preparing the nation to adopt and integrate the Sustainable Development Goals agenda in our overall policy making process. As India makes its mark as leading economy, the crucial conversations around the constant trade-offs between welfare and progress become urgent. With educated and skilled youth and increasing demographic dividend, we stand well equipped to successfully tackle the pressing problems of today. Our National Conference on School and Sustainable Development Goals is an attempt to decipher the impact of school education on increasing sustainability indicators and eventually achieving zero poverty and hunger, good health and well being, decent work, clean energy, gender equality, and so forth. With five exciting discussions involving 25 panelists curated together for an excellent service towards both education and sustainability. We aim to bring our participants an analysis of India's progress towards the 17 development goals. It would be an insightful experience to understand how each goal is based on the simple foundation of quality education for all. The panelists emphasized with the evidence the undeniable contribution of Indian school education in assisting the nation in its strides toward transformational development. So far, we have learned how Indian classroom turn into ideas into action, students into pioneers, and dreams into roadmaps for achieving Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Thank you so much for being patient listener.
Thank you so much, Neha. It was indeed a series of extremely interesting panels with a number of innovative ideas and solutions. I'm so excited to begin this discussion. Noam Chomsky said, and I quote, "Optimism is a strategy for making a better future, because unless you believe that the future can be better, you're unlikely to step up and take responsibility for making it so." Unquote. We all learn to excel at making plans early on in life. But even the cleverest strategy, even the best laid out plans can only succeed if they are followed by diligent efforts and tactful implementation. And this is what we are here to deliberate on today: the process of turning ideas and policies into social change, with a guest speaker whose career has truly been dedicated towards building a sustainable and inclusive future, both in words and in action. The theme for this valedictory session is turning sustainable government strategies into actionable plans: how the Indian youth can assist in the run up to SDG 2030. I would like to call upon my co host Anushka to introduce our special guest and begin the discussion. Over to you, Anushka.
Thank you, Sonal. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, Ms Palak Sharma, who will be addressing the topic for our valedictory session. Ms. Palak is a Sustainable Development Program Officer at Verra, where she works on the evolution and projects with SD Vista and CCB standards in line with Agenda 2030. She co founded the Green Governance Initiative in 2019 to reflect the development goals and make sure the SDGs are implemented at a grassroots level. Her focus on showing young people that they have the potential to change the world one idea at a time. Palak is a Princess Diana Awardee for her work in sustainability through leading the flagship program GGI Young Leaders since 2020. She trained thousands of young people from schools and colleges on how to act on SDGs in their communities. Palak also worked to improve sanitation and period poverty in India through her work with the Center of Advanced Studies in Policy Research and has received PLAN India Impact Award in 2021. She holds a master's in international social and public policy from the LSE and her poetry collection. So, This Is How I Die of Wandering is an Amazon bestseller and has also earned her the title Inspiring Young Artist of London 2020 by BBC World Radio. We welcome you, ma'am, to our conference and to this discussion. And we are absolutely intrigued by your profile, and we would love to know more about you and your thoughts on on the theme of this session. Kindly unmute yourself and say a few words.
Thank you so much, Anushka, and thank you so much for the entire team for so diligently working on this conference. I mean, I was in touch with Abhishek Ranjan sir about the conference, and then he told me that there's a group of people who are working on it, and I was so excited to meet because when I see you, I'm basically seeing myself 4 years ago or 3 years ago. I hate to say that I've become that old. I mean, not that old, but then still, it sounds as if like I was there some ages ago. But I feel that this whole new format of having virtual conferences has made it so easy and accessible to have people from all around the world and experts in different fields without having this whole hustle of figuring things out, logistics and transportations, and the whole cost has come down so much, and so have the carbon emissions. So I'm really glad to attend a virtual conference any day, and I'm possibly looking forward to attend more of them rather than just moving towards a different part of the world on a flight emitting carbon. And then yeah, so coming back, this is amazing, and I'm so glad to be here because this feels like a very pertinent topic at this point of time where we are. India has been falling off the SDG index 3 places this year, and not just India, I think the world has had a static uh, achievement trajectory for 3 years now because of the whole COVID pandemic setback, and even because of the other factors which the COVID pandemic has led to. And this is a very crucial time for us to reassemble and discuss where we are standing right now. More than where we have to go, the more important part is to figure out where you are, because that's where you will understand what is lacking in your strategy and what more needs to be done. I am not a very government policy expert person because that's not my forte. What I can speak about and what I can help in is more about how young people like you and me can actually help uh, further this agenda 2030 through our actions and through our collaborations like this one. So this seems like a very perfect place to be right now, and yeah, I'm looking forward. Do I need to answer anything else right now? You're all on mute. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your words towards our team also. And definitely the virtual medium is a much sustainable solution, and it's saving us a lot of carbon emission. We admire your ideas and your drive towards ensuring sustainability, and it is truly inspiring, and we're honored to be having this conversation with you. So, ma'am, you've led quite a meritorious academic life, from studying public policy at London School of Economics to working at Center for Advanced Studies in Policy Research. I would like to know how you began your career in sustainable policy thinking, and what are your greatest learnings so far?
So I began my career when I was in my undergrad second year. That was 2018 and 19. So I began working with the member of parliament from Jodhpur, Rajasthan. It's a funny story how I reached out to him. I did not have any political contacts. It usually sounds so when you speak that you work with an MP. It sounds like you have a hotshot connection somewhere. I did not have it. I did not even live in Delhi. I did my undergrad from Sophia Ajmer. So my exposure to the policy world was very limited to the kind of websites I viewed and the things I read online. So it was just like, a normal day when I was reading through Quora. That's a question and answer website. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's like, it's a good website. It used to be better. So Mr. Gajen Singh Shekhawat, the MP, who's now the Minister of Jal Shakti, was on there and he was answering certain questions. And I was very intrigued to see, like, a politician on a website like that answering real genuine questions on his policy, his work. And I felt like, okay, I really need to reach out to him. If he can write this, he can also read my comment. So I sent a comment on some suggestion related to the text he wrote, and someone from his office like DM'd me back that, do you want to like elaborate on what you just said? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. And I did. And then I just told him that, I really want to work with you on some kind of policy making, or, just like researching on questions that you ask in the parliament. So he said, yeah, cool. Then just drop your CV on this email. And I did. And he asked me to come meet him and Gajenswar in Delhi. And I went there. And so this is one of the challenges that I want to point out, that considering that people like me, I don't know how where you all are from, so I'm not going to generalize. People like me, we do not come from very high political profile backgrounds. So our parents and our guardians have this kind of fear that you're entering a realm which is said to be so not very young people and women supporting. So how are you going to manage it? And my dad actually accompanied me to meet this person, and he went with me to Delhi. He stood outside the house for like 4 hours when I was having this conversation with this member of parliament, and I'm so grateful to him for doing it, but I also wish he didn't have to do it. I wish the world was a simple place where you got an opportunity based on your merit and you just walked in and people recognized it and there was no threat to anything. So yeah, that's the first challenge I would like to highlight. But then again, that's where my trajectory began. I worked with his team on this project that was called Mission Antyodaya. We worked with a team of around 1,000 interns. I was a part of a 7-member core team. We were running this whole internship program to make sure that we find linkages in the existing policies, not make new policies, but find the existing policies, link them to each other. And we formed this one document, which was then presented to Prime Minister Modi, and he was very appreciative of it. And a couple of them went on to become pilot programs, but like everything else, execution, it's a very difficult part. It's the most difficult part of a policy, the execution. So the second challenge is then execution of what you think of or what ideas you generate, and that's usually a tough thing to do. Even if you have the most brilliant idea, you have the resources to do it, it takes more than just your willingness alone to execute those ideas. It will take a village, as they say, to execute your idea, and the village has to be supportive of what you've thought, and the village has to be willing to move in the same direction. So that's the next challenge. And then I realized that I know how things work, but I still need a kind of a theoretical understanding of how policies work, and that's when I chose to apply for university, that is LSE. And then before going to LSE, the 7-member core team that we had at this office thought that, this is just a one-time thing, this internship thing that we did. Why not make it into something permanent? Why not make sure that more young people who are like us, so I was the youngest of them, so never like us, people like me, they wanted, to collect all of these people to make them aware of what it meant actually to have SDGs. And the SDGs had just rolled out. So not a lot of people knew about it. Not a lot of people knew how they were not just an international index, but they were also a part of our daily lives. Those 17 things are very much a part of how we live our lives day to day. So that's when we formed Green Governance Initiative. 7 of us came together, we formed the core team here, and we started reaching out to different MPs. Our focus here was that it's not enough to generate ideas, it's not enough to be aware. You also need a place where you can execute these ideas. And that was what we wanted to do for people. We've seen how it goes from idea to no execution. So we made sure this time we already connect ourselves to parliamentarians who can then agree to execute these pilot ideas into their constituencies. We had a couple of executions. The first project we did was with the Ladakh MP Jamyang sir, and we established remote classrooms for science coachings in those areas, because the students are not really aware about competitions happening in the country, and they were very aloof from them. So we connected them to remote classrooms set up in Delhi to coach them on science, physics, chemistry, maths, bio. And that was our first successful project. And then we went on to do more, which I'll not bore you with. But the very entry that I had in the sustainable development field was in these endeavors. And later on, when I had my education done and I had the capacity to reach out to higher places, I reached out to Center for Advanced Studies in Policy Research, and there I had the stint with Arogya Rakshak Toilets program, where we worked on making a standard for toilets in India, and that was related to the sanitation goal. Our idea was to make toilets in India very disability friendly and female friendly, and especially mothers friendly, because when I lived in UK and when I lived in other countries, I found that there is such an infrastructure that even if there's a mother, a newborn, there would be diaper tables and whatnot, but Indian infrastructure completely lagged it. And not just in roadside toilets, but also in the high profile toilets we had over the country. So that was the purpose of my work at Casper, to make a standard. And then eventually, when I had a chance to work at Verra, which is basically, so I'm pretty sure like not all of you are aware of what Verra is. And I'm sure like some of you must have tried to read through it or research through it when I was about to come, but then it might be a little complicated. It was complicated for me. And I still have to like explain my parents what I do. I draw flowcharts and everything, because it's an interesting thing to do. I'll just give a brief idea about what my work is and how is it related to sustainable development. Consider Verra as an ISO standard. ISO, right? It's like if this wood is ISO certified, it means that this is the best quality. So what happens is that Verra certifies carbon credits. So if a project is doing afforestation or reforestation in some jungle in Africa or Amazon, they will reach out to Verra, they will reach out to us, and they'll tell us that, okay, this is the project, this is how we did the reforestation, and this is how much carbon we have offset, or we have reduced from the environment, or we have removed from the environment. So there are different carbon sequestration methodologies to measure the amount of carbon you have offset through a project. What we do is we review these projects and we say that, okay, this is the right project, this actually did this project actually offset this much carbon, and we approve of it. And only then would huge companies like Apple or Microsoft or Finnair, different airlines, only then they would buy these carbon credits. So this is the way how the carbon market works. Now the question would be, what is my role? How are sustainable development goals related to it? Whenever a project is executed for carbon credit generation, what they do is that they have to take consideration of community. They have to take consideration of how much they are not affecting or positively affecting the areas where these projects are functioning. Are they ensuring proper gender representation? Are they working on sanitation and rest of the things? So my job is to review that these projects are basically doing this or not, and if they're sticking to different sustainable development goals, what they're contributing, are they actually doing it, and how more can they be in line with their own country's agenda or the NDCs. So yeah, that's my work in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think, as I told in introduction, that you are showing the youth that they have the potential to change one idea at a time. That is how you began through Quora, and, you are here today. So we all feel very motivated after listening to you. So I also read up on this green governance initiative, and I was deeply inspired by its values and the impact that it has had. So what was your vision behind the beginning of this initiative, and how do you plan to grow it in future?
Sure. Thanks. I think I kind of answered this in parts already, but I'll come back to it. Green Governance Initiative was the idea that there has to be a way for young people to be able to basically vocalize what they want to change in their communities. So I do not need to move beyond my community, beyond my comfort zone to some remote part in Orissa or Bihar and then say that, okay, I am changing this, I'm going to change this, because there are, so many fallacies in my own communities, so many problems in my own community that needs to be addressed first. So my idea, or the idea that we had as a team, was basically to make sure that there is a bridge. We wanted that bridge to be Green Governance Initiative, the bridge that connects young people to the people who have the power to execute these ideas that these young people are generating. So in our case, we had a support from several members of parliament. And what we did then was that we trained the young people we came across who registered with us on what SDGs are and how can they actually think of smaller ideas from around the world. So when I used to have sessions and workshops with them, my focus was on introducing them to what is happening around the world on SDGs, because there's so little information transfer which is relevant these days. We are all informationally overloaded, but then I myself am not really very positively informationally overloaded. I have a lot of information on things from my social media scrolling, but I don't know how much information I can put into use, how much information is basically for me to then take inspiration from and go ahead. So most of the times I'm not interested in reading blogs. I just get bored. My attention span is getting shortened every day. So that means that we need people to be aware of these SDGs, to be aware of what micro actions can change or contribute to these SDGs at a huger level because of these decreasing attention spans. So our focus was to capture the people who have good attention spans, bring them to this workshop, make them aware of what SDGs are, what is happening around the world, what actions are being highlighted. So I used to bring examples from around the world. I used to have examples from Ireland. I used to have examples from smaller villages in Romania and communities in Sao Paulo, and how they were working one step at a time on executing these SDGs, just taking, and they were not even thinking in the terms of SDGs. They were just doing it because their communities needed it. So my concept or my idea when I was talking to these young people through GGI was to make them aware that how actions come from inspiration, and they don't really come from deep seated knowledge. You don't really need to be very very well read. You don't need to be very very elder to give some kind of suggestion on something. If you have an idea, you can mold it to something executable. And then once they had an idea, we used to work on framing it, furnishing it, and making it like really executable in a lot of sense. And then this idea would go to a member of parliament, and then they would review if they can do it or not do it. Unfortunately, the number of members of parliament we had with us and the number of young people we had were not really in proportion. So we used to choose 5 best ideas and then send it to the members of parliament. And it just, it really pains me to do this kind of choosing, because I believe that all of these ideas, if executed, could really do wonders. And it's a shame that we cannot execute all of them, that the amount of funding we require to execute these ideas is so limited. So yeah, this was what we did. Considering the second part of the question, what are our future goals? I have been very busy with my work at Verra at this moment, so I haven't been able to really, expand on GGI at the moment. On the other hand, this has been a very personally invigorating year. I have had a lot of movings, and I got married, and so many things happened that it was so difficult to focus on this one thing. But we are planning a lot of, our idea is to not just expand, but stick to this plan. We know that we haven't yet covered every person who needs to be covered and who needs to be made aware of a program of SDG execution. So our work is not done here, and we don't plan on expanding on anything new for now. Personally, though, I have certain plans on working on ensuring some kind of sustainability curriculum in the schools, and that's why I found this conference so relevant. That was one of the reasons why I thought that I totally need to attend this. So I don't know for GGI, I cannot speak on expansion at this point of time, and also because we're a group of people and I'm not alone, so I can't really, speak for all of us. But for my own sake, I can say that for the next 1 year, my focus is into making sustainability a household terms in schools, and probably working on making a curriculum which is very, very sustainability friendly and which does not need interjectory programs like GGI, YLP to make people aware of SDGs. It just becomes so easy if you have something like this in your course book. If you don't, because I don't know you guys did or not, but I studied environmental studies in my school. That was EVS. And I don't think it's relevant anymore. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone by it, but I don't know if I could use, I could use something like eutrophication to explain anything that's happening around me right now. And it makes no sense to me to learn water cycle at this point of time. It's important, definitely, but I learned that in science also. So I don't need a separate subject. I probably need something to make me aware of how my actions can lead to more sustainable living. And that's what I plan to do on. I'm in conversation with certain people, and we plan to have some kind of subject introduction, or some kind of a book, or anything that is something very basic but very doable. So yeah, that's the plan.
Definitely, ma'am. It's very interesting the work that you're doing, and very good luck. A lot of best wishes from our team as well on your new initiative. And definitely, I think the overhauling of curriculum and syllabus is like the first thing that should happen. And maybe we are on the way to do that with the new education policy. Probably things will get better. But definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, of all the SDGs given by United Nations, from zero poverty, no hunger, climate action, gender equality, to creating better partnerships among nations and organizations, ma'am, which are the goals, in your opinion, which are relatively more attainable for India as of today? Like, even if we do a little bit towards them, maybe we'll be able to do like greater good.
Okay. This was the question. So I don't know. I don't think it's something that we've hidden or it's a secret that I knew about these questions. Like, I had an idea of what questions I'd be asked. But this was the most, I don't know, I should call it intriguing or not, but this was the most thoughtful question. I had to put a lot of efforts into thinking about it. I just reached home today. I was traveling a bit, and then all through my way, I was thinking about this question. Like, yesterday I got this list, and I was thinking that maybe there is one, maybe there's none. And I had, a lot of questions to myself about this one question. I do not have an answer to this. I would be very, very honest that as I said, my expertise is not government policies. So I really do not have an answer to this, but I do have a proposition. I believe that to achieve any one of these SDGs, three things are really important. And I took a note of it because I usually forget things. One of it is, of course, the first thing you need is financing. We've gone through this already. That is the biggest challenge. The second thing you need is intent, because you might have the finance to do it, but if you do not have the intentions to use those finances in a particular way, then there's no meaning of having those financial backups with you. And the third and most important thing is then acting on those finances and those intent combined together in the form of an action. For any SDG that we have right now in India and the status we have on those SDGs, there are few, let me say, but saying few would be, I don't know, it's a lie. But we have a lot of challenges on all of the SDGs right now. We haven't been able to really perform well on most of these because the data collection we have, the system we have right now is not efficient. We do not know what is happening on so many goals, and probably we are doing better than what it is being shown right now. But the worst part of it is that we do not have data to back it up. We do not have data to give an idea on what actually is the correct situation of let's say education in India. We have, I still say education because education is literally the most sought after goal. We are having this conference right now on education. There's so many things happening on education, and I believe that education and sanitation are two of the goals where we are putting a lot of emphasis. I don't think the rest of the goals I've even heard people talking about them more. But then these two are somehow, leading the race. But even on them, we do not have proper data to actually reflect the real situation in India. We either have very, very decorative data, which does not give you the reality, or we have the data from international organizations like World Bank and IMF, which literally throws such bad light on us. So there is no in between. There's no way that we are actually being able to reflect on where our progress lies. And if we talk about reaching towards a certain goal with the data we have right now, I'm assuming it will be pretty easy for us to reach to quality education within a couple of years. By 2030, definitely, because we have the data which is not reflective of how people are getting educated. You have the numbers, you have the number of people who are enrolling into education, but are you keeping a track on how much of this education is being then used to create employment opportunities and not just be employed? There's a difference between us training our younger generations into just becoming a part of a system that we have created already, rather than making them create systems that they could then use to further their ideas and further their executionable abilities. So that's one thing. And secondly, I also believe that to talk about what NDCs we can achieve, or to talk about what goals are really executable in our or achievable in our situation, we have to really go back and we have to think that where we are starting from is not where most countries are starting from. I always have this conversation when, so I have a lot of friends who are from the West, and they keep on telling that, the data just came out and India slipped three places, and it was not really, up to begin with. And that's the usual conversations we have. But then we have to really go to the beginning to be able to compare the countries, the Nordic countries with India, or the Indian subcontinent as a whole. We have to understand that we come from a colonial past. We come from a past where we had to build ourselves from scratch 75 years ago. A certain, it's just not enough to say that we had enough time. We had 75 years to build ourselves up, because that was not enough. We had to then undo whatever damage was done to us for the next 50 years, let's say, and then work on creating new things for the past 25 years. And that's not enough time to be able to compete with countries which have been working on their own good for the past 200 years or 300 years. And the drain of wealth is not just a phenomena we read in history. It's actually an economic phenomena that has been hampering our ability to be, developing. I do not go by the words which we use, like developing or developed world, because I don't believe we are developing. I don't believe that they are developed. I just believe in saying that these were the colonists and these were the countries who were colonized. That's how I differentiate the world. And this is how we need to see. This is the development lens that we need to put on to see how we are progressing. We can't just put numbers and compare us to them or them to us, because that's not how comparison works. Our comparison has to take into account the fallacies of our past, and those fallacies which have been given to us by the people who are now generating these indices to compare us to them. So again, like, if you are measuring yourself, if you're measuring the country, I'm very happy about the Niti Aayog's work on SDGs, because I feel that that's something that we need to stick to. I read the report on SDG, the development report that comes out every year around June. I did read the report, but I was not really very amused by it. I never am, because I know that the whole comparison that goes on there is from a very limited set of data. It comes from sampling of around 1,000 to 2,000 people from a country of 1.6 billion people, and that's a shame. So again, I come back to the question and I say that if you want to make goals in India achievable, you need to set targets achievable realistically for a country like India, for a country who has had a past which was blotched by things that we did not have under our control. So that is the way to move forward. I believe that we need to have our own indices the way Niti Aayog does, and that's the great work that Niti Aayog is doing here.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think you have given a really new perspective to all of us, especially about the past we are comparing and how we are actually comparing ourselves with the developed nations, the colonized and the colonizing nations. It was
Colonial. Yes.
colonial. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Also, ma'am, according to your assessment, do you believe that our current climate action is sufficient to ensure our NDC targets?
I'd say no, like a blunt no, because that's not enough. The kind of damage not just we, but the whole earth is doing is way beyond repair right now. The NDCs that we have on climate action, they're focusing too much on renewable energy, which is, good for good in a way. But I think just yesterday reading about this one report that said that how decarbonizing fuels, that is bringing renewable sources of energy and other kind of things, is not just about people like us. It's about the big corporations who now need some alternate to make money than oil and gas. So that's a good thing. And I wouldn't be naming anyone or anything, but I review carbon projects, I review renewable energy projects, and I also review projects located in India. And I have seen that those projects actually come from houses or corporations which are the ones who would be making money on them, on these renewable energy projects. And I, on a personal note, do not have any problem with anyone making money on anything at all, unless it is a harmful thing to do. Renewable energy, by all means, is a great way to go forward. But then again, that should not be our only focus. If our only focus on decarbonizing is replacing the fuel, then we are in some way not really focusing on the actual problem, which is the generation or the generating of any kind of fuel itself or any kind of energy itself. Because if you believe that renewable energy is carbon neutral, it's not. It will be generating carbon in the way machineries would be working, the hydropower plants would be working, they would need power. And ultimately, after some years, it would be able to offset its own impact, whatever carbon it's generating in the machineries. But then still, the way forward is not replacing fuels, but reducing fuels. And that should be the focus of most of our policies. And the most important thing one needs to do in that case is not bring new companies with renewable energy cars or e-bikes and e-scooters. It should be us making the public transport system efficient enough that none of us really need to use our own bikes anymore. I have so when I live outside India, which I did in the past 2-3 years, I never used my own transport. I never had my own transportation because the public transport was so easy. I never felt the need to take even like my own bicycle. That was really neutral, but I did not even had the urgency to take that up because the public transports was so efficient. I just needed a car and I could just tap it anywhere I go and I could just travel wherever I want, whether it was trains, buses, trams, anything. And I think that kind of infrastructure, the infrastructure which is focused more on people who are going to use it. So when I say that, okay, there's this new renewable energy car in the market and now you can buy this, what would a person like me think? If I want to take this up, I would have to sell the existing car that I have, or I would need to expend more money and then buy this new car. Who's the person benefiting here? The person who's manufacturing the car, the person who's manufacturing the fuel for this car. And I, as a consumer, am left with only this choice that I can either have both of these cars, but in any case, I would have to spend money, which is more than I can afford at this point of time. I would probably take loans. I would probably do something like that. I would probably get it financed from somewhere. On the other hand, if I make efficient public transport, I don't think the cost of creating efficient public transport would fall entirely on me. I would just be paying my part. I would probably be paying, let's say, 10,000 rupees a month. And that's me going on the highest bracket possible. Like, even if I'm spending 10,000 rupees a month and I'm getting really efficient transport, then it's a great thing to do. And I'm really surprised that why don't we have better public transportation systems in cities which are smaller than the metro cities. I mean, Delhi is amazing with its public transport system. I was in Delhi yesterday and I was traveling to the airport to drop my husband, and I took the metro line. I'm assuming that you guys are from Delhi, or even if you're not, you know how it works. So the metro line was really smooth. We went from the New Delhi railway station to the airport, and it was such a pleasure to go. But when I was coming back, my train was from Old Delhi station, and I took a cab, and I was in traffic for almost 2.5 hours. And that was the worst experience because I was not only like stuck, but I was also seeing literally cars fuming with smoke around me. I was having such a difficulty to breathe because I've never lived in a city like Delhi. I get really suffocated there. But the fact was that I was thinking that if there is an efficient system like metro here, even then there's so much emission. But imagine if in smaller cities there is a metro network, there would be no need for traffic jams like these. I understand Delhi is a huge city. Even if people use metro, they would need to use private transportation. But in smaller cities, if we are able to generate a really good public transport infrastructure, there wouldn't be any need for having private cars at all. And I'm happy to give up any private transportation I have. And I'm sure all of us are. If we are given something safer and something more efficient and more clean in contrast to what we have right now. So my concept here is not to say that the actions we are doing are not enough, but to say that they're not enough in the sense in which climate change is affecting the middle class population, the population which is going to spend money on things. So it's not enough to just say that we've set up renewable energy plants and now all of us will be getting renewable energy and all the energy would come from solar plants, and let's say that we are now carbon neutral or we've achieved our climate change goals, because that's not enough. When we talk about clean fuel for everyone, it's not about providing them out of pocket expenses on buying those fuels. It's about giving them the opportunity to use those fuels as a part of the welfare system we are, operating in at this point of time. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. I think you said something very important when you talked about how policies and solutions today are sort of, they're less about the users and more about who's going to profit from it and who's earning from it. And I think there needs to be a drastic shift towards user experience and how much out of pocket expenditure one user has to make in order to get a bit greener and get more sustainable. Definitely. So, ma'am, having worked with researchers as well as policymakers, you've had this distinct vantage point to observe the areas where we could do better in terms of execution. Could you discuss a little bit about how we could be better at executing and implementing policies specifically?
Sure. Yeah, I think like most of my work with research has been around figuring out where to get the data from. And that's coming back again to the second question we had on having achieved any SDGs, because I believe that the data is the most important asset we have at this point of time. If we want to have a policy that is possibly executionable, we need to make sure that we are reaching out to the right people. We need to make sure that we are reaching out to people who are actually needing this kind of policy. Most of the policies that we form, most of the actions that we determine to take are somehow the result of a limited exposure to heterogeneous data. I believe that when we take up information, for example, during COVID-19, I wrote a research on how sex disaggregated data can actually help us form better policies on COVID-19. And there was so little emphasis on how COVID is affecting women. There were a lot of independent researchers who were working on it. There were a lot of people from non-profits who were trying to figure that out, who were trying to help women around this. But then again, not just socially, but also biologically. How has COVID affected not just men, but women? But if you look at the data sets that were considered by most of the governments around the world, the data sets were purely men. There were around 100 men who were observed under COVID-19 conditions, and that was the same for all the countries around the world. Number might change, but then it was absolutely men-centric study, and that's where I think we need to understand that for better research and for better execution of policies, the policies need to be made from a point where we are acknowledging that there's not just one homogeneous set of data. We have a whole population of 1.6 billion that comes from such different socio-economic, gender, and sexual identifications that we cannot just put a blanket on them all and say that, okay, this is the policy. Take it upon you. You'll not feel cold. It cannot be like that, because someone's leg might be coming out of that blanket and you need to make sure that you cover that up also. And that can only be done when we have the luxury to be able to understand what their pain points are. As a woman, if COVID-19 affected me and you differently, we need to be able to articulate that in surveys where our opinions are as important as my husband's, my father's, or my brother's. And that's to say that We are currently living in a time where we have so many researchers, academicians, politicians, and bureaucrats who are women. So I am surprised that till now we haven't been able to focus our data collection methodologies to focus on women. But not just women, I mean people from every group that is not really a part of the data collection we do right now. And only then the policies that we make could be made really executionable in the terms where we are considering their impact to a greater population and not just the smaller set we thought is going to get affected.
Right, ma'am. I think that's a very thoughtful, that we have to include everyone while taking the data, and that's definitely required for us to get a more, to plan a policy that is more executionable and is helpful to everyone. So I think that point of view is very necessary for all of us. Also, ma'am, since your work profile has consistently revolved around SDGs, if you were to suggest to our viewers only one action that we can each take today on our own that will assist the creation of a sustainable future, what would that one action be?
Okay, I'll tell you what I have been focusing on for the past few months. I was a person who is into very much, like let's buy sustainable and conscious thing. Let's check, like check the tags of things which say that okay, this is sustainable and this is made from paper, this is made from bamboo, and I would be like that first world person who would be like, oh my god, this is bamboo, let's buy it. But then I just realized that this is all bullshit. Anything you consume is creating footprint which cannot be retracted by however sustainable material is being used to make that thing. If I'm buying a piece of cloth which says sustainable conscious consumer, that does not mean I am, because that particular thing, that particular piece of cloth was uh, created with gallons of water, it was created with gallons of footprinting on machineries and whatnot. And my call or my proclamation to all of you would be to just consume less if it's possible. I was not really like functioning on my full potential during COVID-19 pandemic like all of us were, and I kind of shifted myself to those shopaholic kind of attitudes where I would just buy things as a therapy. And I felt like, of course it was not like millions of expenditure that I did. I don't earn in millions, but then still my focus was on buying more and more. And I think that's the worst thing you could do to the environment, buying more. Even if you're buying paper cups, even if you're buying steel straws, buying creates a footprint that is not retractable. So your focus should be, my focus is, and our focus should be on consuming as less as possible if you want to achieve any of the SDGs. Why I'm saying any of the SDGs, you would wonder like, why will my less consumption reach to, quality education amongst poor kids? That's because when you will be consuming less, you would be creating lesser footprint, there would be lesser amount of expenditure people would do on recycling, and maybe that money could somehow be used in creating more opportunities. So the lesser you consume, the lesser waste you generate, the better it could be, the better you leave for other people to consume. And you leave things for posterity, you leave things for people around you who might not get the chance to buy them. Think of this like in a very simple way. I usually convince myself to think of it like this: if I don't buy a thing in the first stock that comes out, the first collection or whatever it is, then I would be not making it sell, and it would go to a further discount. If no one even buys it during the discount, it would then shift itself from tier 1 cities to tier 2 cities on a reduced prices. That's how retail works. So it would shift from Delhi to, let's say, Jaipur. If it doesn't even sell in Jaipur because probably you live in Jaipur, Nija, and you're not buying it, so then in that case you would be letting it go to a tier 3 city. And in tier 3 city it would be lesser expensive, and someone who might not have accessed that good might be able to buy it. So that might be a very naive way of looking at consumption, but that's how I convince myself to consume less and less as much as possible. So I guess my clarion call is, do not just stick to things which say that okay, this is so friendly bottle, it's like paper, it's made out of paper, and the cup is made out of I don't know what. It's bad. Whatever you're consuming, it's bad. It would take, so I was reading this one research, and if it's possible I would love to share it with you all. Do you guys have a mailing list or something? like I cannot share it right now because I don't remember it from the back of my head. But I can, what I'll do is I'll share that link with you guys. I'll share it in the group that we have, and maybe you can just put it out. It actually gives you statistics on if you buy one steel straw in comparison to a paper straw, you would have to use that steel straw 1,236 times to offset the amount of carbon you generated when you used or you bought that steel straw. So that's the amount of reusing you need to do. Even if you're consuming, reuse it as much as possible. But the best part would be consume less. Yeah.
So minimalism is key.
Yes.
Is something that all our viewers can take away from this. That's great. So, ma'am, one of the biggest challenges to creating and implementing sustainable practices is probably the trade off that has to occur between industrial development and sustainability. And since Verra revolves around creating sustainable standards as well, so is this trade off still a fact that you find yourselves in? And what do you think can be an effective solution to this?
That's a very good question. I'm really happy that we are discussing this today. But this is a very crucial part when you talk about organizations that are working on, let's say, anything that is related to development, anything development related, not just clean energy, not just climate change or global warming. You're talking about all those people coming together, choosing not to indulge themselves into a corporate world which is more paying, which is more secure, and then putting themselves in a position of confusion, in a position of turmoil, where they don't know the work they're doing will actually lead to something huge, will actually create some kind of change, will actually change lives or not. And as someone who has come from a place where I was always questioned, who was always asked if the work I'm going to do is actually really beneficial or not, or if it's just for the sake of me feeling good about myself. I remember there was this one time I had a friend who was actually studying development with me, and she called me a rebel without a cause. She said that you're just focusing on development, you're just focusing on things because you just want to be a rebel without a cause. You don't have a cause, you are not affected by anything, but you just want to do it because you want to sound cool. Why don't you take up something better? You have so many options, just take something better. And I still remember that thing affected me, because I believe that most of the times when we think about opportunities, we think about taking them from the goal of a personal achievement, and that there's no harm in it. There's no particular harm. And when I talk about us choosing this, it's not just about people like you and me who are searching for employment. I'm also talking about governments who talk about allocating their investment, enterprises, huge enterprises, philanthropic societies. When they are placing their investments, they also need to think about the fact that whatever they are doing is going to generate something huge. And usually the amount of the returns to scale, let's say, is higher when we talk about corporate investments. If I set up something which can just generate something, and a machinery that actually manufactures a good, I would be able to get into profit really soon. And that would just make it more exciting and more attractive for me to do that thing. But then again, I have to understand it from the point of view, and I think most of the welfare state governments do it. For our government, it is a very far-fetched dream to focus on sustainable development alone, because I think that we, as I said, our past is really very notoriously destroyed, and we also do not have the luxury of having a limited number of people to think for. Through sustainable development, we might be able to generate employment, but not in the short run. So the idea then is to expand on your industrial sector, because that's where you will be able to find places to employ people. You can't just create a utopian world where everything is like clean and green and happy, but then there are no people to actually access those green and clean things. When I talk about having a better public transport infrastructure, I'm also aware that we also need to make sure that people who are going to go for their daily wage jobs, people who are going to go for their probably daily made duties, they will also need to have access to this infrastructure of transportation. And that means that this will come from a place where they are also being able to earn as much as they'll be spending on this transportation cost. So which means that there will be need for opportunities that are industrial and that are probably not very sustainable for a long period of time in a country like India, because we can't just erase the fact that we have a huge population that needs to feed it's children itself, and there is the first thing that we need to address is hunger. The first thing that we need to address is the fact that survival is more important than the utopian idea of sustainability. So but I'll come back to it, and I'll say that this does not mean that our actions cannot be aided with the help of the very notion of sustainability. If you've heard about Japan, I recently read a couple of months ago that Japan has started giving enterprises this circle, which is in the SDG colors. And so, if your enterprise is functioning in a way which is very sustainable, you are respecting all the goals, you will be given this particular badge. And if you are, you can also buy it yourself. So this badge basically signifies that this is a very sustainable enterprise. Even if I'm going for a bakery shopping, I'm going for supermarket shopping, if an organization's employees, the workers there, the helpers there, if they have this badge, I will assume this is a sustainable employment place, and this place will be using sustainable methods. So when we talk about industrial production, industrial you know expansion, we must keep in mind that of course it is not possible for us to completely focus on sustainable development and the different enterprises we can generate with it, but our focus should be in some way creating an industrial expansion plan which also keeps into consideration sustainability and its ideals, and make sure that we are somehow reimposing them and putting them in a place where we can actually look at a person, look at an enterprise, look at an industry, and say that, okay, this is an industry, but then it's still sustainable. So it is still something that can help us reach Agenda 2030.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. Also, ma'am, we would like to know your opinion and what steps we can take at school level to guarantee that the issue of that the issue is driven. I'm so sorry. What steps we can take at the school level to guarantee that we are producing a generation that is aware about this issue and is driven enough to work for this.
I think that again brings me back to the point where we were talking about what our next plans are. And one of my plans is actually to work on this particular thing. We need some kind of interjection at the very start of a kid's life. When I interact with kids, or so I remember, like, I used to work with an academy when I was in my undergrad, and even when I was, like, before going to my postgrad, I was working with an academy, and I used to talk with people who were prospective civil servants, and that was in 2019. And I thought that maybe, these are people who are going to be studying more, and there used to be people amongst them who used to say that, why should we study from you? How much do you know geography? Why should we study? You're so young, you're like younger than us. And I used to listen to all of them, and I used to be okay with it. But I remember once I coined the term sustainable development goals in the class, and there was like a huge bunch of people who were like, we don't know what that is. What is it? And there were people who were going to write the mains examination in the coming October. And it was to my surprise that I felt that this is the whole lot of people who want to become bureaucrats, who want to come into policy action, and they don't have any idea of what SDGs are. And if this is a situation for people who are so well read, of people who are going to step into this place, what about people like, who are working in corporate IT tech firms? What about them? Do they have any idea of what SDGs are? And that's when I saw that, okay, this needs to be changed in some way. And that's when I think, like, the one of the motivations for starting GGI Young Leaders program was also this. So at this point of time, if I am to talk about what can be done to make people aware of what SDGs are, the actions they can take, I I think your question was about what actions they can take. But to understand what actions you must take, you must first be aware of the need for this action, and that needs to come from a place of education. Because if you teach someone on social media, they would just look at it like some sort of a carousel post and go past it. That's a fact. When I met my husband, he had no idea of what SDGs are, and he was absolutely like, what are they and what do they do? And he was an IT person. He was working at the helm of product management of IT softwares and whatnot, and he had a lot of power to execute those in his work, and he did not know about it. So when we decided talking, and we talked a lot about SDGs, and now he is actually doing his masters, and he's focusing his thesis on how IT can be more sustainable, and how we can make apps which can help you capture your own carbon footprint and also offset it on the go. So I think like he's the best example I have of how awareness can actually lead to action. And I usually like talk about him because that's a learning. If you feel that you know someone around you who's not aware of what SDGs are, of what they do, the best you can do is not motivate them to act in a certain way, but then just recommend things to them. But okay, just you don't know about it, maybe just read about it here. Just try to go through it. And if they are the kind of people who do not want to read, which I think most people are, then the best way is to just give them an idea of what it is on the go. So you should be, so my idea is that you should be aware of what SDGs are. You should be aware of what awareness is and how important it is. And just the knowledge enough of what they do is enough to inspire action in anyone who is willing to take it. So if you meet two other people and if they don't know about it and if you talk to them about SDGs, maybe they would be able to connect that, okay, then if there are SDGs and if this is a problem, then my community is also going through this problem. And maybe there's a solution to it somewhere, so I can read through it. And that's how chains of, SDGs could actually improve things. I would recommend though that you should go to the United Nations SDG Action website. There are a couple of resources in there, and they are actually about very, very small steps like switching off the lights, consuming less, using a bicycle. And that's something we've all read through and not really executed, to be honest. But if you can also execute them, and it not just leads, gives a list of these things, it also gives you a list of things happening around the world, smaller communities acting on SDGs. And if you ever feel that I really want to do something, but I don't know how to do it, I don't know if there's an idea, I don't know if I have an idea within me. Maybe if someone gave me an idea, I'm a good executioner, I can execute it. So keep your ear out on conversations where you see ideas. Use professional networking to figure out at this stage. I mean, you're all in college, so, and I'm sure the people who are watching must also be in some college or school, high school. So at this point of time, what you can do is leverage the networks you create. If you have a network of people, if you're a group of friends, maybe tomorrow, rather than just gossiping about some teacher, maybe sit and talk about how you can actually, do something about it. Maybe you have an issue in your college, maybe you have an issue in your community, you have an issue in the housing you're living in, and you can not think of a solution, but someone in the group might be able to think. But you are a good executioner, execute it. Make sure that whatever you do, and be aware of it, does not come from just you. You are not alone in doing things, and you shouldn't be thinking that it's your job alone. As I said in the beginning, it takes a village. It literally takes a village to do something good. And the good part is, at this point of time, you have a village with you, you have a college, you have a university with you, and I'm sure they will be supportive of things you want to do. I am always here. In case you guys want me to drop my email ID, I'm always reachable. If you have any ideas, use LinkedIn. If you see people researching on certain things, reach out to them. Don't hesitate in saying that I want to work on this with you. I'm sure no one would actually hamper you. No one would not want you to be with them. But when we talk about smaller things, again, it's about making people aware. It's about making sure everyone knows what sustainable development is. And it's not just some kind of jargon that's thrown around in conference rooms like these. It's not something that just, it's a topic of conversation only when you have some kind of academic essay to write on. It should be something that should become a part of our day-to-day lives. That, okay, I don't want to do it. And so, for example, if you want to shop, if you want to go out with your friends for shopping, just say that I don't want to do it because I know it'll lead to more consumption. I don't want to consume more. As simple as that. So, yeah, that's how you begin.
I think that's very interesting. That intervention is so important in terms of education and also wanting to mobilize your communities. And I think as all of us are young here and we have young viewers as well, and it's very important to take action and not just think about things, and actions, not words. So I think that was something that we're all taking with us. So we're coming to the closing of the session. Ma'am, I would like to know from you, how was your experience of this session, and if you have any recommendations for our team in terms of how we can organize it better.
Sure. I think this was a really smooth organization. I've been a part of a couple of virtual conferences, even at company levels, but this was, I think, one of the smoothest one I ever attended. This was really a breeze to say. I was traveling and I was really skeptic if I would be able to, connect in time. Should I test something? Should I be able to do something else? But this was just like everything happened in a jiffy, and I'm really proud and glad of you guys for doing it so well. As in recommendation, I don't have any because I think you guys have been wonderful with what you do. I would just recommend, like, maybe have a follow up mailing list, or have a follow up Telegram channel, or a follow up, I'm not sure, WhatsApp group, because that's really not very privacy friendly. So if you can, maybe just have something to follow up on the materials that you guys discussed here. And also in long run, I'm not sure, how do you guys like stay in touch? Do you have like a community, a user community, which is a part of what you do?
We do. We have a website as well called sarkarischool.in, which has a list of all our projects. And we are quite active on LinkedIn as well as a community.
Right. Yeah, of course I saw that. And I think that that's great. If there's one thing I would recommend you guys do, is to collect some kind of resources from all the speakers who were there in the conference, and then share it on your LinkedIn or your social media pages. If there's one article they recommend you to read, that would be a great collection of resources that you can then use for your own good also. So yeah, because I think I have too many suggestions for you guys to read. I usually have to watch also, not just read if you guys get bored. But then, yet again, I think this has been really, really amazing. The whole process was so smooth. You guys have been so friendly and so helpful. It just felt like a breeze. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We are glad that you could make it, and your recommendation is duly noted as well. We'll keep it in mind. And before I end the session, I would like to call upon Neerja to give the results for the article writing competition. Over to you, Neerja.
Hello, everyone. So, through this virtual national conference, our aim was to invite opinions and perspectives over the theme that was school sustainability and education. In the course of which we had 30 panelists join us for 7 sessions, and with how diverse their professions and credentials were, we were able to have some really insightful and informative discourses with them. But beyond opinions shared by all the guests with us through panel discussions, we also had individuals articulating and expressing their takes in the form of research articles. So, SarkariSchool.in invited research articles on various topics surrounding the core theme of the event. And out of numerous articles that we received, we decided on 3 entries to be the winning ones. The criteria kept in mind while evaluating those articles were the familiarity that the writers had with the topic they chose, the problems that they think are hindering the development and being faced far and wide and for that matter, and lastly, the innovative approach to address the problems with strategies and policies. Participants were really meticulous in expressing their views, and their efforts are worth congratulating. However, the 3 articles that really won us over were third position, Khushi Bhandari, Kamla Nehru College, University of Delhi. Second position, Abhivyakti Mishra, Daulat Ram College, University of Delhi. And first position is Prachi Karn from SIBM Pune. I congratulate all the winners.
Congratulations to all the winners from my side and from our team as well. With this, we come to the end of today's valedictory session. Thank you, ma'am, for such an interesting and thought-provoking discussion. I'm sure, like us, our participants and viewers are also taking home some valuable insights from this session. It was wonderful to talk to you about the intricacies of policy planning and also all the great plans that you have for the future. I would like to call upon Raj Lakshmi now to deliver the vote of thanks and conclude the session. Over to you, Raj Lakshmi.
Good evening, one and all. I hope I am audible and visible. I am very delighted to express my gratitude and appreciation towards all the esteemed guests and dignitaries who have graced this conference with their wisdom and ideas. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would also like to thank our guest, Ms Palak Sharma, for her words of enlightenment and encouragement. It definitely gave us a new perspective towards sustainable development goals. And my gratitude towards all the other panelists for being here today and for sharing the valuable feedback, views, and ideas. My heartfelt thanks to the organizing team of Sarkari School in collaboration with the Club of Economics, Fergusson College, for their hard work towards making this conference a successful one. Last but not the least, I would like to thank you all, our audience, for actively being part of the conference and for being with us for the whole time. We really appreciate your participation. Once again, thank you to everyone who has contributed towards this event. Throughout the conference, we discussed about sustainability and education, and I would like to end with a quote that sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. So, we hereby announce the end of this session, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for being here.